Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the magnificent Monday edition of the Yard. Hope you had a good weekend. I did. I was lazy. I told you guys to do all your honeydew stuff, and I don't know that I did any of it. I don't. I've got one major project that I've got to get going. You know how it is. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I got something I've got to get done before Dana gets home, and I've started on it. I didn't just need to commit like a whole day to it and knock it out. You know how it works. But anyway, it's gonna be a work weekend for me from now through at least Memorial Day, because college baseball season is right around the corner. I guess this weekend we'll have the final weekend, Super Bowl weekend, and then we'll get into college baseball season here in under 2 weeks, man. We're going to talk a little bit about college baseball later in the show, but I'm excited, man. I hope you guys are too. And you may have saw that Armani Larry recently named a preseason All-American. We signed some good guys, man. We did. Colton Ledbetter, Larry, those guys having great fall scrimmages. Mike Nemeth is attending and reporting on each of those scrimmages. So if you're a genespage.com subscriber, you can go see how the new look Bulldogs are performing here in the spring inter-squad scrimmages as we get ready to go. One thing I'll tell you, too, and maybe it's because of the fact that I've coached baseball before, maybe, and I've covered it for a long time. Don't overreact about scrimmage numbers. Don't. A lot of schools don't even make scrimmages open to the public, and then those that do, many of them don't have any media coverage. As Chris Simonis has told me before, Steve, nobody else does this. Well, we do. We're a baseball crazy fan base, so we do. Baseball is a year-round deal around here. But there's a lot of situational stuff that pitchers and hitters are working on this time of year as your staff tries to figure out who they can trust. There are times that you'll put guys in difficult counts. There are times that you'll tell a pitcher, hey, I want you to work on this particular pitch. We're working slider today. I want you to prove you can throw it for a strike. And so you go through those drills and just kind of see how guys perform as you begin to kind of settle a lineup on your rotation. And so I just say that with a little bit of education, I guess. Don't overreact to scrimmage stats. Just don't. Now, of course, a lot of times that you'll notice, guys that struggle in the fall and struggle in the spring, struggle in the season. But the good thing is we've got more bullets in the gun, so we don't have to keep trotting people out there that are ineffective. And there are some guys, too, that kind of work on their way back into good health. So I just tell you that. Don't freak out about that stuff. Don't do it. Also, would like to congratulate the Prince of Darkness, His Highness Ozzy Osbourne. Won 2 Grammys last night. And that's the thing, too. I've been kind of anti-Grammys for a while. I mean, it really dates back decades. And yes, I'm still bitter about it. Jethro Tull won the first metal Grammy over Metallica, and then the next year they make it up and give it to Metallica, even though Metallica didn't have any record out. So they haven't always done a great job. They did get this right, though. Ozzy Osbourne, the winner of 2 Grammys last night, Best Metal Performance, and also Best Rock Album for Patient Number 9. We have talked about that album on the show. I'm an Ozzy fan. I've got an Ozzy tattoo, got Ozzy shirts, got a bunch of Ozzy CDs. But Ozzy's been nominated 12 times and has won 5 Grammys. And what's interesting, too, it just kind of shows the bias, against our music, metal. For years and years and years, they had no heavy metal category. And then rock music was considered basically like pop rock. It would be, not that I don't love Journey and Foreigner and people like that, but it was radio-friendly rock. You didn't have Motley, you didn't have Guns, and of course, we won a lot of American Music Awards and MTV Awards and things like that. But the Grammys, for years and years and years, looked down their nose at who was really selling records. And then it wasn't until later they established the metal category, and then they screwed that up, of course, giving Jethro Tull the award. But Ozzy now has won 5. I know he's won I Don't Want to Change the World, and I know I Don't Want to Stop was nominated. He's won a couple times with Black Sabbath. But he wins as a solo artist. And again, if you don't have the Patient Number 9 album, there's a lot of great guest spots on that album. Check it out. It's true to the Ozzy catalog. You know, a lot of people are getting older, right? And so it's taking more effort, I guess, to produce great records. But Ozzy also too recently announced that he would not be touring anymore. You know, we lost Mick Mars recently from Motley Crue. He's being replaced by John Five as Motley plans a world tour, and Mick sadly can't tour anymore. So Ozzy is going to do some residencies from time to time. That hasn't been officially announced, but a friend of mine in the industry said he'll do a Vegas residency, and then he'll go across and he'll go to England, and he'll do like a month of shows there, and that'll pretty much be it. He's not going to tour the world anymore. He's just going to do like maybe a month at a time. And so maybe give us a chance to get out to Vegas and see Ozzy. And the truth of the matter is, I've never seen Ozzy play live. As crazy as that sounds, I've never seen Ozzy play. I didn't go to Ozfest. There were times I could have gone, didn't go, couldn't work it out. So when they do announce those dates, I know there's going to be expensive tickets, but I'm going to go watch. I owe it to myself, right? But there are a lot of bucket list bands, right? There's not many left for me, to be quite honest with you. There's some new bands that pop up. I'm thinking, man, I want to go see these guys. Oh, they're going to be 5 hours away, and I don't know. But of the headliners, I've seen just about everybody. Just about. I hadn't seen Lenny Kravitz yet. I want to see Lenny. I love Lenny Kravitz. One of the reasons I have dreads, Lenny Kravitz. I think Lenny Kravitz may be the coolest guy on the planet. Him or Nikki Sixx. It depends on my mood, right? But the reality of it is a lot of our heroes are stopping touring, and at some point they're going to retire officially, and we're not going to have a chance to go see them play live. So I encourage you, as always, when you have the chance to go, no matter your genre of choice, it doesn't matter if it's rock or country or rap, R&B, whatever, many of the giants of our youth are getting older, retiring, passing along, and you're going to lose the opportunity to see them live. So take it, make the effort to go. A lot of these flash in the pan bands, 6 months now, you won't even remember who they're called or what they're called. But Ozzy Osbourne, congratulations to the Prince of Darkness. We couldn't do a show without a tip of the cap to the guy in many respects kind of created heavy metal. He did. And we had an interesting discussion about that recently. I will tell you, I think Black Sabbath was the first truly commercially successful heavy metal band. And a lot of people, this came up, somebody said, hey, well, what about Iron Butterfly? And they were a predecessor in many respects to Black Sabbath. They just didn't have the same commercial appeal. Of course, there's In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, right? And it's a great song, right? It's on the Less Than Zero soundtrack, is covered by Slayer, I think. But they didn't have the same commercial appeal. And so, again, in my estimation, I would give Black Sabbath the nod as the band that really started it all. You may disagree, but that's my opinion. Hey, let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I love Bulldog Burger Company. I had a conversation with John Bean earlier. I've told you guys before, Ian, my youngest, he will make me an empty nester here in about 6 months. And he's excited. Man, he's having a blast at Bulldog Burger Company. He told me the other day, he said, Daddy, I could work here like through college. It's close to campus. He's having a great experience. Made a lot of great friends down there. And so many of you have been nice to him as you've gone in there, and I appreciate that. He's a good kid. I don't know that I'd ever rank my kids, but of my kids, I think he probably has the kindest heart. I think he is the nicest to people. Not that any of my kids are rude, but I think he is the kind of guy that he wants everybody to have a good experience and everybody to get along and life to go well for everybody. He's not a guy that looks for drama, And he's having a great experience at Bulldog Burger Company. And if you're looking for a place to work, I'm telling you that you couldn't do better than that. And that's one thing John and I talked about. He's like, we want to hire hospitable people and then be hospitable to them. It makes a difference, man. It really does. I got a lot of friends that are restaurateurs, and they tell me how difficult it is to find staff, and it is. And when you find somebody, you want to hang on to them. And I'm just glad to know that my kid is working at a great organization like this. And Audrey worked at Harvey's for years, and which I've told people before, it's my favorite restaurant in Starkville. But Audrey absolutely loved her Harvey's family, and some of them even helped her move to Florida. Just great people. And so, listen, support this great organization, the Eat With Us group. Bulldog Burger Company, of course, the sponsor of this show. And John says things are going great. Business is booming, right? And you want to stick with the winners, so stick with Bulldog Burger Company. Go by today. Had that great restaurant quality hamburger. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer. I'm not going to keep telling you. Many of you, I need to make it like a commandment or something. It makes you better looking, and you need it, okay? It's in writing. Trust the science. Get that chocolate shake to go. Maybe get that bread pudding to take home. It's a great experience, and I'll tell you, they run a happy hour special from 3 to 6. Maybe you're unaware of that. Yeah, happy hour 3 to 6. If you're getting out of class early or getting off work early and you want to get your weekend started early, or just maybe have a relaxing moment to yourself and go by and have an adult beverage, you can do that. Got some cool things coming up, too. They're going to do some tap takeovers. We'll have more information about that in the weeks to come. But 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Star Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and Lake Harbor Drive. The patios will be open soon, too, and get ready. As the weather begins to warm, you have a chance those patio areas to be rolling. You'll be glad you did. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right. Do you feel that? I mean, honestly, do you feel it? Do you smell something in the air? It feels like a fall day outside. Sun's shining, but there's still a little bit of a chill in the air, and it's like, man, this is great. I could almost wear shorts. But there's something else out there. There's something else in the air. And it is the excitement level of Bulldog basketball. Told you guys on Friday's show we had a chance to win that game, and I'll be honest with you, we played better than I ever anticipated. I think top to bottom, this was our best performance of the year on both ends of the floor. It's so encouraging to see. And the broadcast talked about it, about how we had such a difficult schedule. I mean, think about this for a second. I mean, just, you look at the first, 8 games, you get Alabama twice, you get Tennessee twice, you got to go up with a rivalry game, you got to go on the road, play Georgia. That's a bad loss, and then you got to go play Auburn. But we said on the show many times it was a very difficult first half of the schedule, but things were going to flip for us in the second half. We had a chance to put some games together. And Missouri, of course, a team that's played exceptionally well in the SEC. Bulldogs now winners of 3 in a row. 81-74 winners in overtime over number 11 TCU. And I think in many respects, that's probably the game that many of us will kind of point to. I don't know how many of us expected us to win that game. I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I thought we would play tough like we always do, and then in the end, they would find a way to pull it out. I remember Cam Matthews saying in postgame, if we hadn't won this one, I don't know what would have happened. I think that was a turning point in many respects. And I think so many of us are like, you know what? Hey, this team is competitive. Chris Jansen's got him playing well. We just need a shooter or two. We just need something to feel good about. Well, then we got that. And then we go on the road and win in the SEC. And I know South Carolina's not good this year. I get it. But any time that you go on the road in this league, in any sport, and you win a game, especially a game we win by 15, the game was never really in question, it makes you feel good. And then you get the next big test. You get a Missouri team that came in that won 3 in a row. They were absolutely red hot. Had some big wins this year. That Iowa State win kind of looms large today, too. And I won't say we dominated a game, but we controlled the game. State never trailed in this game. And at no point did it ever really feel like Missouri was going to challenge. Every so often they kind of cut the lead down a little bit, but it never really felt like we were in trouble. State is a 33-27 leader at the break, and then we outscore them 30-25 in the second half to win the game by 11. 63-52. State now 15-8 and 3-7 in the league, and Missouri 17-6 now 5-5 in the league. But let's look at a couple things here. There were a couple stretches here, where we could have folded a little bit. And again, that's the thing that throughout this season, this is how it's felt. This is a tough Mississippi State basketball team. Not especially skilled on the offensive end, but we're a tough team. We're not going to quit. We're going to keep coming. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep rebounding. We're going to keep defending at an elite level. And we absolutely did. We defended so well on Saturday. So well. But you look at this situation here. I mean, you're just 2 minutes gone there in the second half. State's up a dozen at 41-29, and you think we're about to run away with it. Missouri makes a little bit of a run. I guess not yet. We did stretch it out to 14. And the next thing you know, you look up and it's back to single digits. And then just before, or just under 11 minutes, the lead is down to 4 points. And you kind of got the feeling. I saw some complaints about the commentators. I was not especially disturbed by that. I didn't feel that way at all. I didn't think that they were biased, and as some of you do. And it seems like whenever the other team makes a run, it feels like they're rooting for the other team. There are some guys out there that I think get kind of caught up with that. I don't think it's anything intentional, but again, it's a 4-point game here, and they've really put together a solid run. And you start thinking, you know what? We hadn't scored in several minutes here, and they've put together a 10-0 run. We've got to answer. Well, we do at the free throw line. We make one of two. DJ Jeffries makes one, so it pushes it back out to a 5-point game, and that kind of got us going again. Next thing you know, you look up and we're up 9, then we're back up 11. And I think around the 6-minute mark, I think we all felt like, you know what, we're in a good position here. And the way that we had played so well defensively, you start thinking, unless we just collapse here, we've got a chance to win this game. This is a big win. And lo and behold, at the 6-minute mark, we're up 11, and we hold them without a basket for the full minute. Like they missed 2 3-pointers on back-to-back trips, and then we go down, and Tyler Stevenson, who has been amazing off the bench, that kid plays with so much energy. I love watching that kid play. And I love watching him and Tolu kind of react with one another, right? I mean, it's like they feed off each other. Tyler Stevenson doing a great job for Mississippi State. Hits a little jumper here, makes it a 13-point game. And then we start making our free throws. Tolu knocks down a couple, and so under 4 minutes, State is up 15, and you're just kind of wondering what the final score is going to be. We trade baskets with them a little bit, and then it happened, right? Then it happened. And you know what I'm talking about. I tweeted it. It was such a phenomenal play. So Cameron Matthews, who always gets caught doing something right. I love that kid. I love that guy's game. I mean, he is becoming a star. I remember when he first got here, howling those guys put him on the floor because he was such a good defender, and he's willing to set screens, and he's willing to compete for rebounds. He's not going to fill up the box score, but he's going to help others. And it was crazy. So Cam gets a steal here. Picks DeAndre Golson's pocket, gets it out to DJ Jeffries, and then it's kind of like a game of takeaway on a 2-on-1 fast break, and then DJ lays it up, and then Shaquille brings down the house, and the hump exploded. The lead swells to 15, but it wasn't just the lead. It's an emphatic play like that, and of course they get down and hit a 3, and we were still celebrating a little bit. We didn't get back on defense where we should. Give them credit, but I think at that point that was kind of the exclamation point. It's not only are we going to win, we're good. We're fun. And it was, for those of you that were at home, I know you wanted to turn that DVR back and watch it again. I did. I could not wait for that thing to hit social media to share it for all the people that missed it. We don't have a lot of guys, and we haven't had a lot of guys in recent years that can truly elevate. You got a 6'1" point guard out there heaving down an alley-oop from point-blank range. It was amazing, and it should have been an N1. It was so fun to see that, right? And that's the thing, too. Isn't it fun that Bulldog basketball is fun again? Honestly, it is. And we can get in all these discussions, and I got lured into one yesterday. There's about funding, and we should do this for basketball and this for baseball. Okay, listen. Zach Selman's going to figure all that out. He'll have a vision for that. Let's just enjoy the moment. Let's enjoy the fact that Bulldog basketball is fun and exciting again. Because it is. And listen. Hey, Bulldog friends, our friends from Indeed are back, and they are absolutely better than ever. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Your time is valuable. Don't waste multiple hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find the top talent with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like the Indeed Instant Match option, their assessments, and virtual interviews. You hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description exactly the moment they sponsor a job. How cool is that? The best thing about Indeed, too, is, listen, these are names you know. These are people that you can trust. They know that you're trying to grow your own business. You got to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Indeed knows hiring needs to be cost-effective when you're running your own business, and many of you are. Put Indeed to work for you today. Visit Indeed.com/boneyard to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/boneyard. Terms and conditions may apply. Curse per application. Pricing not available for everyone. You need to hire. You need Indeed. Simple as that.
At Progressive, we know there's nothing like the feeling of riding a motorcycle with your crew on the open road. That symphony of engines roaring in perfect harmony. It's a feeling that would be impossible to recreate on the radio. Until now. Hit it, Jerry. Oh, my word. Really, really terrible. Was that a glockenspiel, Jerry? Quote with Progressive and see if you could save with America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. No, Jerry. It's over.
We were gritty and competitive. We were still losing games. And I give a lot of our fans a tremendous amount of credit. Rather than get negative, and there were a few that did, but by and large, the Bulldog fan base to say, you know what? We're not winning the way that I want to. But, man, we're playing hard. And you know at some point we're going to get a breakthrough. You know we're going to get a couple of shooters in the years to come. But the foundation for the Jans culture is being laid. And I think we enjoyed this Missouri game probably a little more than the other ones because we knew they were a quality opponent, but we controlled the game from start to finish. There was never really any doubt in the second half who was going to win this ball game. And there's Cam Matthews knocking down a couple free throws late, under 2 minutes to push it back out to 14. And then they hit a three-pointer with under a minute to play. But like those last couple of minutes, it was just a matter of academics, right? We're just running out the clock. And we controlled the ball, and it was obvious they weren't going to foul. It's kind of like they're waving the white flag. And then all of a sudden our people rise to their feet. Because I think our fans fully appreciated the quality of the performance against a quality opponent. It's fun. It is. It's fun. And according to the box score, 8,494 paid to see it. I don't believe that's the actual attendance. Not going to get into all that. But it was a great atmosphere. It was. And it's one of these things, too, we talk about this all the time. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm not going to be negative and look in the past too much. But I mentioned this yesterday on the genespage.com message boards. And here's my opinion. Okay, you may disagree, and that's okay. I'll still like you. We can have a difference of opinion and remain friends. We made some really bad decisions on the men's basketball side for the better part of a decade. We have not handled men's basketball well. I'm not talking about funding. I'm not talking about renovation, because you can make those arguments too. I'm talking about from an HR perspective. Now, you go back to the end of the Stansbury era, and we'd gotten spoiled with Rick. We had. I was a Stansbury fan. Still am. But we didn't handle the end of the Stansbury era well. Yeah, I made the comment that, when Sidney and Bailey were out there fighting in the stands in Hawaii, in many respects, it wasn't just them beating on each other. They kind of beat the life out of some of our fans. It's like, you know what? This is embarrassing. It's one thing we can't even get out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. We can't make a Sweet 16. We won an SEC championship back in 2004. We couldn't get over the hump, and now we've got a situation like this. And there were a lot of people then that said, you know what? Hey, this is getting out of hand. It's embarrassing. And in hindsight, I think that was really kind of a turning point in our men's basketball program. And then we announced that Stansbury's retiring. And I know some people that were part of the search to replace Rick Stansbury, and they'll tell you the temperature around the Mississippi State job was not good. It wasn't good. And people say, well, why did we hire Rick Ray? Well, part of the reasons was because a lot of the candidates that we targeted didn't want to come here. Because the perception was is you couldn't win at Mississippi State without cheating, and then all of a sudden you've got Renardo Sidney out here. And I was told, it's secondhand, of course, that one candidate said, I really would like the job, but what if I take the job and then Renardo Sidney appears on Outside the Lines with some story to tell? It could crush my career. So we had a difficult time finding somebody. People are like, well, we could have got so-and-so, we could have got so-and-so. That's easy to say now. We hired Rick Ray. We wandered in the wilderness for a while. Scott Strickland then made a decision. Rick Ray was scheduled to come back. And then all of a sudden, Ben Howland becomes available, and his people reach out to ours. We make a late decision. I remember I was in Brookhaven when that happened. I got a phone call that said, hey, we're about to make a coaching change. And I called Gene Swindoll, and I said, hey, I'm hearing Rick Ray is out. We're about to make a coaching change. We're like, what? Because we'd kind of been given some assurances that Ray was going to get another year. Howland becomes available, had an impressive resume. He's won everywhere he's been. Scott Strickland obviously had to make that decision. I mean, it's like, hey, do you give Rick Ray another year to save his job, or you've got a Final Four coach. It's wanting your job. You got to make that decision. It turned out it didn't work out for us. I'm not going to sit here even in hindsight and say it was a bad decision. When you've got a guy with that kind of resume that's interested in your job and you've got a lame duck coach, you basically just elevate your time frame a little bit. You make the call. So Scott made the only decision that I think he could have made at the time. It did not work out. I don't know how much gas Howland had left in the tank. I don't know if he wanted to get out of broadcasting and get into coaching to get the retirement score. I don't know what his motivation was. Maybe he just simply missed the game. But it didn't work out. And I've said on the show before, when we lost to Liberty with a roster that had eventually 3 NBA players on it, it was over. That team was capable of making a Sweet 16. And we get upset in the first round after not having been there in forever and a day. At that point, it was over because the roster was going to flip in many respects. And you had climbed and scratched and clawed. You put together a great season, and you get out-coached in the tournament. It was over at that point. And it was just a matter of what year we're going to fire him. When could we afford to fire him? And so I think all of that, I think there was a lot of Ben Howland fatigue. And you hate to make it so personal, but I think, Ben did not embrace this fan base. Ben did not interact with our fan base. He was not a part of our community. He was here to do a job. And had he done that job well, I think everybody would have been okay with that arrangement. He did not do a good job. And every single year we have all this traffic in the portal. And that's, we were having a bunch of transfers before it was cool. Right? And then we get Chris Jans. I always thought Ben Howland was an interesting cultural fit here. And listen, that's not in any way a shot at who he is as a person. He's a West Coast guy. And so Starkville is not necessarily the be-all, end-all to people that maybe have lived in metropolitan cities. I get it. Starkville's not for everybody, but it is for Chris Jans. I was told in the interview process, Chris Jans said, you know what, I grew up on a double-wide trailer on a dirt road. He was born to coach at Mississippi State, right? Not that we're all a bunch of rednecks, but this is a guy that has worked himself up the ranks of the coaching profession. He has a very blue-collar appeal to him. I think it resonates with our players and with our donorship. I think we respect the fact that, hey, this is a self-made man. This is a guy that's done it through hard work. He's not getting by on the fact that maybe perhaps that he was an elite college player, an elite pro player, or perhaps he was a guy that had a famous dad. I mean, this is a guy that made himself. And so it's easy to get behind that. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so fun to cheer for Mississippi State, because we feel like Chris Jan's one of us. And in many respects, he is. And now officially he is, at least, it's a job. But I think Chris Jans fits here. And I think what you're seeing is really the genesis of the new Mississippi State men's basketball program. Real quickly, looking at the numbers here, Tolu Smith, your SEC Player of the Week for the second time this year. A great game for Tolu. And it's been building. He's been much more consistent here the last couple of weeks. 25 points, 12 rebounds, 9 of 12 from the line. Strike it up. 8 of 12 from the floor. Just the 2 personal fouls. He played 35 minutes. And Will McNair played some too. Will, not really as effective, got a little foul trouble in his time out there. But basically, Will kind of working as a guy to give Tolu a little bit of a break, kind of keep him fresh. It worked out well. DJ Jeffries, I thought, had a decent game. A couple of ill-advised threes, but 10 points and 9 boards. If we're going to get that from DJ, we're going to win more times than not. Cam Matthews also double-digit scoring, 10 points for him, 7 rebounds. Shaquille Moore, just the 8 points, but, man, he absolutely electrified the crowd and knocked down a pair of 3-point shots. Deshaun Davis did not score. And you know what? It's okay. We didn't need him to, but the game plan was to get the ball in the interior. The game plan was to get the ball down to Tola, who was a magician with his footwork down there. But Deshaun Davis, when you've got 3 double-digit scorers, somebody's going to sag a little bit. And then Tyler Stevenson comes off the bench as your 6th man, and he's also a double-digit scorer. So you had 5 Bulldogs score, and one of the starters is not one of them. That is, again, not a criticism of Deshaun in any way. I mean, there have been some games that Deshaun has carried us down the stretch. But Tyler Stevenson, 4 of 8 from the floor, knocked down a couple free throws, pulled down a couple boards, 63 points. And listen, Eric Reed is struggling. And I give Chris Jans a lot of credit to, it's like, hey, let's let him work through it. I believe it's one of his last 22. He attempted 6 3-point baskets. He missed them all. 5 of the 6 were very, very makeable. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's not missing by much. Maybe it's a confidence issue. Maybe it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy with him. But there doesn't appear to be anything mechanically you look at that's wrong with his shot. There was one time he really rushed it, and he missed that one a little bit greater margin. But yeah, I mean, and listen, I've read some comments. People are like, hey, he shouldn't shoot. Well, that's the only way you get out of it, right? I mean, because again, I think a lot of it is mental. I think once he gets the first one to drop, I think he'll kind of get going again. We signed him for this reason. We signed him to be the long-range assassin. And so we need to get him going. We can't just put him on the end of the bench and just say, okay, well, that's over with. No, we got to let him get through it. And I give Chris Jans a lot of credit. When the game was separated a little bit, let's put him in there and let him play a little bit and see if he can find some rhythm. So I do not question that in any way whatsoever. And Eric's going to help us win some ball games. I mean, it hasn't worked out the way that we'd hoped, but I'm still hopeful the Jans and the crew can get him turned around. But State, 42% shooting from the floor as a team, and of course 6 of those are the 0 for 6, for Eric. But again, just kind of work your way through it. Just 15% from beyond the arc, 3 of 20 as a team. A couple of those, Shaquille Moore. And free throw shooting continues to get better. We talk about it when it's a problem. We're going to talk about it when it's improving. And again, this is coaching. When you're not making free throws, it's coaching. When you're making free throws, it's coaching. Now, of course, players have got to go out there and execute. But, when coaches harp on items, they get better. It's like I heard this guy say this years ago. I don't know who told me this, but I always remember this. Whatever is measured improves. And so all of a sudden, we begin to recognize a deficiency here. We allocate more practice time to it. We talk about it. We make it a bigger part of the conversation. And now free throw shooting is improving. 9 of 11 in the first half, 9 of 14 in the second half, and part of that's fatigue. But 18 of 25, we shot 72%. We can do better, but the reality of it is we're improving as a free throw shooting team. And as close as these games get, as competitive as they are and gritty as they are, we've got to be able to make free throws because down the stretch, games are going to be tight. And again, Missouri never led in the ball game. It was tied once. And I believe that was at 0-0. I believe that's correct. I think it was 8-1. And we got rolling pretty good there, right? But 32 points in the paint for the Bulldogs, 12 off turnover, 6 second chance points, 3 on the fast break, and then 10 from the bench, all from Tyler Stevenson. So a great game for Mississippi State. We'll be back in action against LSU. It's like the the clash of the Titans of the Mississippi State head coaching finalist. And LSU, they're decent, right? That's going to be Wednesday night in Humphrey Coliseum. Reminder, students, this is the go to the Mize for the pregame. This is the pump it up night. I don't know what kind of joy you're going to have for what they have planned for you, but if they put it on a schedule, it's probably worth looking at. I mean, you're college kids anyway, right? Turn out and have a good time. I mean, that's what your parents want you to have a good time. But LSU, 12-11 overall. We're going to talk about Tigers more on Wednesday. But 1-9 in the conference. They have lost 10 games in a row. It's a game we got to have. Absolutely got it. You got to extend this streak to 4 games. You absolutely have to. And there's no reason we shouldn't. And we knew LSU wasn't going to be good this year. With all they lost and all the problems that are kind of circling around that program, and all of a sudden they get off to that big start. They start the year 5-0, and everybody's like, "Well, hey, look at this." And then we get into conference play, And it's been tough. But again, we'll talk more about the Tigers on Wednesday. But again, encourage the students to get out, go enjoy that. Whatever pump it up night is, it's going to depend on you. You go pump it up. And let's go win a basketball game. And how cool would that be? Like all of a sudden you won 4 in a row, and all of a sudden it gets a little tighter in the student section. The line gets a little bit longer. It takes a little bit more of an effort to go get your nachos, right? That's what we want. We want the hump to roll again. We want the hump to roll. And all of a sudden you start thinking, we got some winnable games, man. We got some winnable games on this schedule, and they're not all gimmies by any stretch of the imagination, but we got to win the game if we're supposed to. But can you imagine winning 4 in a row and the confidence level the team will have headed to Fayetteville? And we're going to need it. Arkansas is a very good program. They always have been, and their fans love basketball. So we got to go take care of LSU first, but I certainly like our chances in Fayetteville a lot more with a full head of steam. I know you guys do as well. All right, time for today's Top 10 list is always brought to you by closewithblair.com. Blair Chandler is my friend. Matter of fact, he texted me this morning. He didn't just text me to see how I'm doing or anything, though, right? Blair. Nah, Blair's my buddy. I love Blair and his family to death. Blair's got an up-and-coming baseball player in his family, Finn Chandler. Remember the name? Shout out to my homeboy Finn. We've had lunch and breakfast together a few times. I like it when Finn's around, man. Finn and I have watched some ball games together. But listen, Blair's a guy that's got a family, but listen, he wants you to help take care of yours, right? He wants you to have the opportunity to have something that is almost impossible to put a price on. It's a place to call home. You may have lived in a lot of houses, but maybe you hadn't been home since you left your parents' home. Or maybe in your family, that's just never been something you've been able to enjoy. Let's make some difficult decisions today. And let's think about the longevity, kind of change your family tree forever, where perhaps the dream of home ownership is now an expectation, right? Maybe you're looking to refi, I don't know. Maybe now's not the time. But if you're on the hamster wheel of renting and making somebody else rich, maybe it's time you got off. Visit closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com to learn more about his services. Top 1% close ratio in the country, 21 years of experience. Works at Fairway Mortgage, a reputable mortgage lender. A lot of people out there kind of working for subprime lenders, charging you big rates, big fees, trying to exploit you as best they can. Blair's a pro, man. Give him a call or text today at 601-500-2344, 601-500-2344, and let him know you heard about him on the Boneyard. And if you do, he's going to pay for your appraisal, about a $500 value. So whether it be by text or call or email or whatever, just let him know, hey, Blair, I heard about you on the Boneyard. And Blair's like, you know what? I got you. I'll take care of this appraisal for you. Be sure and check it out today. Closewithblair.com. All right, top 10. We have had this suggestion many, many times. I would say 20 or more. And for some reason, I just never committed the time and effort to it. And then over the weekend, somebody else, I don't know who it was, I'd like to give you credit, but I don't remember. So I love you. I don't love you enough to go back through my Twitter mentions and find it, though, okay? It's a busy day. I got a lot going on. All right, but anyway, it's top baselines. Now, here's the thing, too. I'm a guy that likes rap. I'm a guy that likes some R&B. Of course, I'm a rock guy first and foremost. So I had to kind of narrow this down, and maybe we come back at a later date and we do the funky bass lines, right? Right? There's so many great bass lines. I could go back to Straight Outta Compton and probably just do a show about the bass lines on that. But these are bass lines from rock songs, okay? These are actual instrumentation. It's not a DJ or a computer or anything like that. And we'd probably have to work in some Luke Skywalker, too, when we do the funky bass lines list. So Roy, put that on the list. We're going to do the funky bass lines list at some point, too. But these are rock. So there are a couple of bass players on this list that could have comprised the entire list because they're so talented. Now, so there's not going to be any duplicates. What I mean by that is one bass player, one song, because it wouldn't be fair. I mean, just simple as that. It wouldn't be fair because there are some people out there that are just absolute magicians. One of the guys that I didn't put on the list that maybe I should have is Billy Sheehan. Billy, of course, was with Tallis and then the bass player in the David Lee Roth Band. And now he's out with the Winery Dogs. Of course, that's Richie Kotzen and Mike Portnoy. It's a great power trio. If you're unfamiliar with them, I encourage, dial up the Winery Dogs. Billy is phenomenal. And if we had an honorable mention for Billy, I'd have to pick Addicted to That Rush from Mr. Big. Absolutely phenomenal. I love the Mr. Big catalog. I love Eric Martin as a singer. Paul Gilbert was a phenomenal guitar player. But I didn't have Billy Sheehan on the list. And there's no Nicky Sixx. Now, to be honest with you, I think Nicky is a very good bass player. I've seen him more as like the leader of Motley Crue, the lyricist. I've never seen him in the same level as some other guys. And that, don't tell him. I love his bass playing. I just don't think it's real technical, right? Didn't have Duff McKagan on the list for kind of the same thing. And Duff's one of the coolest guys in rock music. But some honorable mentions to some people that didn't make our list today. But of those three, if I was putting the band together today, I'm picking Billy Sheehan. All right, number 10. I'm not a fan of this style of music, to be quite honest with you. I think it is kind of gratuitous, self-esteeming type stuff. So I'm not a big Primus fan. But you can't have a list of bass players or bass lines without mentioning Les Claypool. The guy's phenomenal, in the words of Ben Howland, incredibly talented. I think it's just a little over the top. I know some of you like Primus because it's different, and I get that. I just never really got it. Even though I have the album Pork Soda, I kind of got, suckered into that. And so we're going to go with a track off that album called My Name is Mud. And the bass line of that is crazy. It's phenomenal. All right, number 9. And Flea is one of my favorite bass players. I like the funk. I like the tapping. I like the fact that Flea is a great showman. And I like the fact that he and Anthony Kiedis have been so close for so many years and really look out for each other. So we're going with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And you could pick any number of songs here. This is one of those songs, that just you look at one of those artists and you say, you know what? What do you pick? I'm going with Give It Away because I think it's absolutely phenomenal. But I love the intro to Higher Ground. They covered a Stevie Wonder song. And it was incredible. And I think Flea is really the shining moment on that track. Number 8. Now, this is different than the rest of the tracks on this list. And part of the reason is, and I don't know technically if it's on the level as some other ones, but I think the bass line on this song, this iconic song, is not truly appreciated the way that it should be. Because number 1, the song, The Chain from Fleetwood Mac is an absolute masterpiece. But I love when they break it down late and then John McVie just brings it back. The bass line is so pronounced on this song, I think it deserves inclusion on our list. And John McVie, a phenomenal player. Phenomenal. And there's so many people, it's like, we talk about Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham and, Christine McVie, Mick Fleetwood in some respects. I think John McVie is kind of the most unheralded member of the band. And he was a founding member. But I think John's shining moment is The Chain from Fleetwood Mac, number 8. Number 7, one of my favorite bass players of all time is Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. And so I thought about this. What do we do? How do we pick one Steve Harris song? So I Googled Steve Harris bass lines and found an interview with Steve Harris. And he listed his top 5. Run to the Hills is on there too, but we just had Run to the Hills last week on the show. We're going back, all the way back to 1980, the Killers album. It's Phantom of the Opera. Steve Harris says that is his favorite bass line that he has ever written and performed. So Phantom of the Opera from Iron Maiden is number 7. And I don't know that that's ever been on the show before, so it's a first today. So we love Steve Harris, and so we're going to defer to Steve Harris's expertise about his own playing. He says this is the number 1, that's number 1. Number 6, and as I Googled top bass lines, this song was not mentioned, and I think it's a crime. Because I think Gene Simmons is underappreciated as a bass player. And because Gene's a guy that can kind of get in the pocket and just kind of lay it down for you. He's not real flashy, but he's a guy that can really play. He's a guy that can sing. He's a guy that can really, really write lyrics. But there is a bit of a run in this song that I think in many ways kind of becomes the signature of the song. It's Detroit Rock City from Kiss. It's one of the most recognizable bass lines in the history of rock music. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's when you put that on, there are so many layers to that song, not just the story, not just Paul's amazing vocals, not just Ace. To me, Detroit Rock City is one of those songs where you had four incredible musicians in absolute synergy. And I think Gene probably shined more on this than anything else. Detroit Rock City from Kiss, your number 6 song. Number 5, I would be remiss if we didn't mention Cliff Burton from Metallica. It's a shame we lost Cliff at such a young age. And sometimes I wonder what rock music would look like today if Cliff had lived. And you can say that about many musicians. But, Cliff was a guy in the early days of thrash. He was the guy. Everybody tried to emulate and mimic what he did. He was the guy. And there are a lot of people out there that, will tell you this is the best bass line from Cliff. And so I'm going to go with the one a little closer to home for us. We're going for Whom the Bell Tolls from Cliff Burton and Metallica. And if you haven't seen Cliff 'Em All, it's basically a documentary, and it shows some live footage of Cliff and talks about his death. And, it's the thing, too. There's so many people out there that are living life recklessly, and Cliff dies in a tragic bus accident, It's a shame. It really is. Not that Metallica had made the most of it. Not that Metallica hadn't put an amazing career together. But Cliff Burton was kind of the backbone of that band early on. All right, number 4. And everybody's heard this song, and not everybody remembers the name to it. But you talk about incredible bass lines. You talk about stuff that's difficult to replicate. I mean, a lot of people can just go and play 2 and 3 chord progressions. Can you lay down Roundabout from Yes? I submit you probably can't. You talk about a bass player at the highest level of his game. This is it. Yes is Roundabout, and I love the acoustic intro to this. This is one of those songs, there's just so much going on. And Yes is kind of underappreciated too. They were a prog band in many respects, but Roundabout is one of those songs you want to hear some elite musicians play at a high level. You put this track on, you'll be glad you did. Number 3, a little more modern here. We're not going to go all classic rock. One of my favorite bands, one of your favorite bands, and if they're not, they certainly should be. It's Tool. That's right. And we could go a lot of different directions with this. We could. My favorite Tool song is Vicarious. It is. I love that song. I love the attitude in it. I love Enema. Love that one. I love The Pot. There's some. I can talk about Tool all day. But to me, the most memorable bass line in the Tool catalog is Schism. Schism. Absolutely phenomenal. It's to hear a guy, again, like that, make the sounds with a bass guitar like that, almost make it sound like a 6-string. It's incredible. All right, number 2, we're going back to classic rock here. You had to work in Queen somewhere. You had to get Deaky on here. Could have gone with Under Pressure. There's so many good things. There's so many great bass lines John Deacon laid down, but we're going to go with the song that he wrote. And if you've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Another One Bites the Dust from Queen. And for a long time, that was my favorite song. Because the very first lyric is Steve walks swirly down the street with his brim pulled way down low. That was me. No, it really wasn't, but I identified with that, obviously. But this is the first record I ever bought with my own money. It was Queen, The Game. For this song, Another One Bites the Dust. I was a huge Freddie Mercury fan. Back when it wasn't popular in the Bible Belt to be a fan of Freddie Mercury and Queen. Because we were always so judgmental, and I was so conflicted by that. It's like, I love the music. You don't even know this guy. Why are you talking so negatively about him? Well, I don't approve of his lifestyle. Well, who needed your approval? I can't just enjoy the music? Why do I have to sit out here and give a dissertation about the life somebody else chooses to lead? Why can't I just appreciate the art? And so I won in that one. But Another One Bites the Dust from Queen, number 2 on your list. Number 1, though, and Roy and I traded some texts about this. Geddy Lee from Rush, he is that guy. He is from, I'm not a huge Rush fan. I like Rush. I appreciate Rush. But when you look at the catalog that Geddy Lee and Rush has put together over the years, and there are a lot of people that repeat like their own behavior, right? They just kind of mimic themselves and cover themselves. That's just not the case with Rush. Everything is brand new. And you had Neil Peart, of course, who was an incredible poet, incredible lyricist. And what Rush does is so complicated and so technical and so intricate. And rather than the bass guitar being just kind of a support instrument, Geddy Lee made it a featured instrument. I know some of you are going to be disappointed in my pick, and that's okay, because I don't think you can go wrong picking a Rush song on a bass list, right? I went with Free Will. I love Free Will. I think that may be my favorite Rush song. I love the vocal on it. I love the bass line. I love how it just explodes in the chorus. We could have put YYZ on here. We could have. Probably could have worked in a John Paul Jones and Led Zeppelin song, probably Ramble On or When the Levee Breaks, something like that. We didn't do that, so we throw an honorable mention here late in the show. But Geddy Lee and Rush, if you are into bass playing, you already probably have all these albums downloaded or on your catalog somewhere, right? Or you have the records themselves, maybe from back in the day. So an interesting topic, and I appreciate everybody. Many of you have said, Steve, thank God, finally, right? I hope I did the list justice, because I know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to appear out of nowhere and say, Steve, you forgot about so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, you did. I could probably throw a tip of the cap to Rudy Sarzo, too. Phenomenal player. Rudy Sarzo, of course, in Quiet Riot and Whitesnake. Tawny Katane says Rudy Sarzo, the nicest guy ever. Ever. It's too bad that she's gone. It really is. I had some conversations here recently on social media with some fans of music, and we were talking about Jani Lane. It was recently the anniversary of Jani Lane's birthday. It had been 59 this year. And I told you guys before I had some interaction with Jani about recovery. We had one chance to talk at the Texas Club in Baton Rouge, and I was just struck by how sad a person he was. And it's kind of a reminder for me that, addiction's no respecter of persons. This is a guy that married, at the time, the most beautiful girl in the world, and had his career on top of the world, and now he's playing the Texas Club in Baton Rouge. And anyway, I had a chance to talk to him, and so we're kind of celebrating Jani. We're telling our Jani stories online. And somebody had mentioned that there was a time that he was involved with a recovery group out in L.A., and Tawny was in the group too. And I had some interaction with her online at times about recovery. And she just never seemed to get it. And she was a person that didn't believe AA could ever work. And there were a lot of people in her life, I think, that were happy that she wasn't sober, to be quite honest with you. And matter of fact, there is something that means something to me now. Is on my Instagram account, I've got a picture of Ani playing baseball at Williams Baptist College. And I just posted a picture and said, hey, I've got to see my favorite baseball player play today. And she commented. There was a time she followed me on Instagram. And I don't say all that to praise me in any way, but there are a lot of people out there that we respect and we hold in high esteem that are struggling with the same things we are. I think it's important to understand, at the end of the day, we're all garden variety. Some of us just have cooler jobs. But I'm very thankful for the relationships that I built in recovery and very grateful to still be alive today. And, listen, for those of you that have followed me, last week or so, it's been difficult. I told you guys last week that we had a family member have some issues, and, we think we've got things stabilized now. But it reminds me how precious it all is, right? Like, we take so many days for granted. And I don't want to get philosophical here too long with you, but those days when nothing's going wrong, you know what I'm saying, where everything seems to be okay, and there are not enough of those days, but there's always something to worry about. And if you're a person like me that's kind of a chronic worrier, which I inherited that from my mom, but the reality of it is that times like these make you appreciate those. It's like when I've just got my regular mundane problems to deal with, it's like, I got to feed the dogs, or I got this, or I got to travel here. Those are all part of life. But when you come face to face with having to deal with a life or death situation, it kind of makes all that stuff seem so incredibly unimportant. And so it's one of the things I'm kind of committed to is when I have those days, right, when it's just like a regular day, I'm going to enjoy having a regular day. It takes an awful lot out of you. I know many of you are dealing with similar things, right? And some of you have challenges I don't even know about and would never. And so my hope is that sometimes this show can be uplifting. I had a lot of people that reached out to me, I'd say a dozen or more over the weekend, after Friday's show, said, hey, listen, I've been dealing with this, or I've got a friend that's dealt with this, or I've got, somebody I work with. Guys, we've all got people around us we can pray for and support and lift up. We all do. And I don't do enough of that. All right, this segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart. I know you guys are well aware of the selection available to you at Campus Bookmart. Next time you're in town, go by and see them and their smiling faces. They're happy to serve you. Doing a great job for a great fan base for many, many years. A Starkvillian institution. Campus Bookmart, your one-stop shop for all things maroon and white. Be sure and go by and check them out. If you can't make it to town, let me encourage you to visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And being a loyal Boneyard listener, you'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Absolutely incomplete. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. All right. The women are back in action tonight against the University of Tennessee. And that is going to be a tough out for us. And hopefully we have a good crowd there. The ladies now 15-7, but they have lost 2 in a row after winning 3 in a row. But 10-2 at home. And, of course, one of those losses came to number 1 South Carolina. If we can replicate that effort, we have a chance to win this game. But Tennessee already beat us, 80-69 up in Knoxville. So we get them back down here. Not necessarily a fun adventure, but, we haven't beaten Tennessee too many times in our history. I remember when we did, Dominic Dogenham with a big play late for us to beat Tennessee. But tonight is the Celebrate Women in Sports night. There will be gifts, I think, or maybe I'm wrong here. Yeah, celebrate National Girls and Women in Sports Day with us. So, nice recognition for our ladies. I am a big proponent of women's sports. And, we had a lot of fun, in the Big Shave for years. And I think some more fun is on the way. I don't know if we ever recapture that spot as a national blue blood. But I like the way that our recruiting efforts are trending. And so I think that's an important aspect of it, too. I mean, Sam's got to get his players in and get people to buy into his culture. He's got to get people that fit. And but again, I still think we have a chance to make the tournament, but we've got to get things going here. Tennessee now 17-8 overall, 9-1 in the conference. Looking back here, they took down Carson Newman in an exhibition game, and then they went on the road and got beat by 15th ranked Ohio State. They beat UMass. They lose to number 11 Indiana. So a couple of big losses, but a very ambitious scheduling for the crew up there in orange and white. They blast Rutgers by 40, and then they lose in Thompson-Boling Arena to UCLA. So not a great start to the non-conference. They head down to the Bahamas and they lose by 1 to Gonzaga, and you're beginning to wonder they're going to turn this thing around. Well, they put together a couple wins, and then they lose a 3-point game to Virginia Tech, who was ranked in the top 10 at the time. They blast Chattanooga by 30. They get Wright State. They beat Central Florida. And then they lose to number 2 Stanford. But again, a lot of ranked opponents here in the non-conference schedule, kind of getting them ready for the war that is the SEC schedule. Their final non-conference game before conference play began was a blowout win of Wofford. They take down Florida. They take down Alabama. They get us 80-69. They beat Vanderbilt in Nashville by 13. They beat A&M by a dozen. A&M not a great team this year, as you guys are well aware. They beat Georgia, a team that beat us. Just an inexcusable loss for us. They beat Florida. They beat Missouri. They lose to UConn. And I believe what will be the final non-conference game of the schedule for them, and that is correct, until they get into tournament play, and lose by 17. They then lose to number 3 LSU, 76-68. So when you start looking at these losses, they've primarily been to ranked teams. There's a couple here and there. Lost to UCLA, wasn't a ranked team, but they have been very ambitious in their scheduling and have kind of paid the price for it. They after the loss to back-to-back losses to UConn and LSU, both of those ranked in the top 5. They beat Ole Miss by 14, and then they will host us tonight. We'll see how things go. I'm curious. We will host them tonight. I'm curious to see what Rakia Jackson's reception will be in Humphrey Coliseum. Now, we have an extremely classy fan base, especially on the women's side of things. So I suspect, we'll have some fans that will do a nice ovation for Rakia at some point. But she's having a great year up there, averaging 17.7 points a game. So whatever issues she had when she was here, it appears that she's turning those things around. Of course, there was a time after she got up there she was suspended for a little while, but it appears they've kind of got her turned around. So we will see her extensively in this ball game. Now, can the Lady Bulldogs get in her head a little bit and kind of get her off her game some? We'll see. Only 2 double-digit scores on the average this year, and Jordan Horston, one of them, averaging 15.7 points a game. But Rakia only started about half of the games up there. She came off the bench for a while, but she is going to be a prominent factor and play a large role in this game, an especially skilled player. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for her here, but it will be interesting to see how we defend her. If there's any drama, I don't expect any, but you could see you could see a little drama, I guess, in some respects. I'm not sure how to play it. You know what I'm saying? I think there is a mental aspect of the game. You want to get in people's heads and kind of get them off, but you also don't want to at the same time distract yourself, and that's always a possibility too. But Rakia again putting together a great year up there, 132 rebounds for her, which is second most on the team. Second only to Jordan Horston, who has 154. She's kind of playing within herself, not really getting in a lot of foul trouble either. So that's something to watch too. But 29 assists, but also 59 turnovers. That's the second most turnovers on the team. So she's willing to give you the basketball. And we got to make her do that. We got to make her get out there and play. And it'll be interesting, probably an emotional deal for her to be back in Humphrey Coliseum after the way she left. And there were a lot of people, of course, that got blocked on Twitter by Rakia and her mother for some negative comments about Rakia. But, again, a lot of her issue wasn't really on the floor. She's a very talented player. But, from a cultural standpoint, it wasn't a great fit for either side, and she's moved on. And that was the thing last year when Doug Novak and those guys announced that she was no longer a member of the team. It was more than mutual. Absolutely more than mutual. And people are like, I can't believe this is happening. And I think the team really rallied without her around. So I expect the Bulldogs to come out and bring their best effort. I don't think there's any question about that. We will come out ready to play and probably bound and determined not to let Rakia Jackson take over Humphrey Coliseum. So my hope is, again, that it is a very civil and cordial event. It doesn't serve anybody well when there's problems. But that's something to kind of consider as we get in. But our ladies, still a chance to do some big things. We've got to stop this losing streak, though. Ole Miss just simply a little bit better than us. They swept the series for the first time in forever, and then we had that just abysmal showing. But we ought to have our legs under us, and we haven't played since January 29th. So we had a week to kind of work through some things, perhaps put in some new wrinkles, kind of some things we want to do defensively. And then on Thursday, the ladies will then travel to Florida and then host Texas A&M on Sunday. So, 3 chances for the ladies to kind of get some wins this week, and 2 chances for you to see them in action in Humphrey Coliseum. So that's important to understand too. This is an important stretch for us, and you begin to think, okay, well, Tennessee is a tough out. A&M should be a win at our place, and then you got to go to Florida. And so that's probably the swing game in many respects. You've got to try to find a way to win that game. That's a very important game for us in many respects if we have hopes of making the NCAA tournament. Got to find a way to win that game. And listen, Florida has not been great this year, 14-9, 3-7 in the conference. And we'll talk about that later in the week. But you start looking at the numbers here and you say, you know what? You got a chance to get 2 of 3. You need to get 2 of 3. You get 2 of 3 and all of a sudden you start feeling a whole lot better about your prospects. You get 2 of 3, well, then you're 6-6 in the conference and 17-8 overall. and it feels like 20 wins and a 500 finish is certainly possible. That's an important aspect in every bit of this. So we have a chance to kind of make some big things happen. Because when you start looking at the rest of the schedule, and there's not much left, we got basically 20 days left. 20 days left in the regular season on the women's side. And you're going to have 6 play dates, or 7 play dates, those 20. So a lot of women's basketball coming up for you. But this stretch, in many respects, may define the season. It's as simple as that. You can find a way to beat Tennessee, all of a sudden you make life a lot easier on you because you get a big boost in the net. But I'm not expecting it. But if you lose tonight, you got to wonder what that does to our psyche, losing 3 in a row and then having to go on the road to play a Florida team that's desperate for a win. So 6 p.m. tip tonight. That will be on the SEC Network. I hope that you can attend the game. If not, certainly tune in and support the ladies. And again, we're playing meaningful basketball, but we can make it more meaningful by winning 2 of these next 3 at least, and then setting up a good couple of weeks here with at road games at Missouri, home at Alabama, home against Arkansas, at LSU to round it out. And so you begin to think, winnable games with maybe the exception of the road trip to LSU. So the games are there. The opportunities are there for us to move up in the standings and put ourselves in a position to make the NCAA tournament. And that's certainly the hope. And so we wish the best for the Lady Bulldogs tonight as they host the Lady Volunteers. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by Portico. I've told you guys before, if I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico. You should too. Whether it be your ballgame weekend retreat or your primary residence, Portico has a place for you. Phase 1's completely sold out. Phase 2, underdeveloped now. Some of those homes are sold, but some remain available. Also, you have lots to choose from. Maybe perhaps that you need a custom build. They can accommodate you with that. It doesn't have to be this cookie-cutter approach. Got some great Bulldogs involved with this project, bringing this wonderful residential development to the greater Starkville area. Give Brooks Bryan a call today at 601-416-8075. Again, 601-416-8075. You can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Go all the way up to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and really anything in between. Again, you have some flexibility there. Very easy to get to. Turn off 82 on the 12. The very first right is Pat Station Road. You go through the 4-way stoppers, Portico on the right. Next time you're in town, maybe go see for yourself how cool a place that would be. And again, it's the convenience to campus, just 1.1 miles away from all things Bulldog. That's always been the dream, right? To be able to be here and go to have season tickets to everything and be able to spend your evenings on the campus of Mississippi State University. You can make that dream a reality by making the move to Portico. Make it your next move. Okay. We talked about college baseball. I'm gonna interview Kyle Cheesebro tomorrow. That's a planned schedule for 10 a.m., so you can look for that piece over at genespage.com. Should be tomorrow afternoon or evening, right? Interested to see how the SEC coaches' standings look. It's one of those things till you put a little more credence in that because they know the players. But D1 Baseball is the one-stop shop for me. I'm a subscriber to D1 Baseball. I respect Aaron Fitt and Kendall Rogers immensely because they actually get out and go to games. They cover games. They're out in the fall. They go out and see players in action. There are a lot of people that cover college baseball that kind of do it from a distance. And I respect people that make the effort because I'm a person that makes the effort. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting back on the road. I'm going to bring my wife with me sometimes and do some photography. I can't wait. She loves college baseball too. And how couldn't you? But D1 Baseball has released their 2023 projections. So we'll start on the East. Number 7, they have Missouri, 7th. And considering the trouble they've given us the last 2 years, I'm glad we don't play them. Absolutely drives me crazy. And it does all of you too. Number 6 is Kentucky. I think Kentucky might be a little bit better than that. We'll see how it shakes out. I think Kentucky, Nick Mingione, of course, I think needs to get the tournament this year. I think Nick's a guy that has things, going okay, but I think that a lot of people are kind of underwhelmed with so many other people in the conference routinely making the tournament. I think Nick is probably coaching for his job this year. And I hate it, but that's the reality. It's a business, right? All right, number 5, according to D1 Baseball, is Georgia. I think Georgia could be one of these teams you look up and they're a 2 seed somewhere, or they're a team that misses a tournament. I think there is a lot of variance in the expectations for Georgia. Now, Scott Strickland always has great pitching. They always have great offense, but when we went and played Georgia last year and we lost that series out there, and it felt like that may have been a harbinger to things to come, but Georgia was a good team last year. They had a frontline starter, had a good bullpen. They played really well in their own ballpark. And so I can see Georgia, honestly, I think that Georgia-Missouri series might be bigger than people anticipate. All right, South Carolina is picked 4th. I'm not a huge South Carolina guy. I mean, to be honest with you, I love the tradition of the program. Ray Tanner's done a lot for college baseball. I don't know that this team is as talented as a team last year. And that was one of those things last year. A lot of people wondered if they'd make a coaching change. They did. It's just one of those things like South Carolina has not been able to recapture the magic. And I don't think this team is especially talented. They had some veteran guys on a weekend last year. They weren't great. They were really good, and at times just good, and other times they were average. But if you got in that bullpen, you had a chance to get to them. They had a couple of big arms they saved for us on Sunday a couple of years ago. But this is a South Carolina team that's got a lot of pride and tradition. I just don't know if they have the talent to be where they need to be. Vanderbilt picked 3rd in the East this year, and I think that's probably about right, considering what they lost. They were a team last year that scuffled a little bit, and I really felt that they would. I mean, people are like, oh, well, it's Vandy. Well, you don't lose Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter and get better. Had some good relievers last year. Didn't have a ton of offense, and that was one of the things that we exploited in 2021. They had some free-swinging guys that did not fit that big ballpark. And I think, in many respects, I think people are kind of catching on to Vanderbilt a little bit. And, of course, there's still the scholarship situation. It is what it is. But I think Vandy is kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. A little bit. That's not to say with NIL they won't figure it out. I'm sure they will. Florida is picked 2nd in the East. It's going to be interesting to see that Vanderbilt-Florida series. That may determine who's 2nd in the East. And, of course, number 1 in the East is Tennessee. Now, Tennessee lost a lot last year. They return a lot this year. They've worked the portal hard. They've done a good job evaluating talent. Tony Botello is a alpha dog coach in every aspect. They've also announced, too, they've had to kind of push back their renovation a little bit. They went out and raised all this money, and the cost of materials have skyrocketed, as you guys are well aware. But now they're going to do it in phases, and it may be over years. Do one phase a year as they kind of roll this thing out. Tennessee, let's be honest about this, Tennessee has not really been committed to college baseball. I know Todd Helton had a great career there. Todd's given him some money. And it looks good on TV, but if you've ever been there, it's not a very impressive stadium. It's not. That's not to say that as of late the fans haven't turned out and made it a great atmosphere. But the Tennessee administration has really let college baseball be treated like a stepchild. And when I was up there a couple of years ago, I talked with some people about that. And I said, when you guys were investing in college baseball, we were investing in women's basketball. I'd say it worked out for them, right? Wouldn't you? But now they're kind of playing catch up. And I think Tony is the guy, and with his vision, they will do the things necessary to kind of keep him there. And he's had a couple of opportunities in the last couple of years. Is elected to stay there. And you may not know this, but Tony drives a Lamborghini down the streets of Knoxville, Tennessee. Kind of fits, doesn't it? But Tony's the guy, too, to get himself in trouble. You got to be careful if you're Tony. All right, in the West, picked 7th in the West is Auburn. I think that's about right. I know some other people were saying, hey, well, they made Omaha last year. Listen, they actually should have gone 2 years ago. And they had some major injuries on the pitching staff that really kind of put them behind the curve. Last year with Sonny DeShera, they made some big things happen. They did. Arguably the best transfer in the country last year. I don't know if anybody had more of an impact. They weren't able to replicate that this year. You're going to be missing some guys too. And, Butch is always going to have competitive pitchers. And so you got to be ready to go. But the reality of it is you get in that bullpen, things could be a little bit different. I know John and Butch will make more of a financial commitment over there, which Auburn needs. They need to finish that stadium, so they need to do. But you got to get fans back. You got to justify the expenditure, right? All right, so then D1 Baseball has a sixth. I don't agree with that. But I also understand the reservation. Mississippi State's season is basically going to hinge on the transfers. You've got a great recruiting class that's come in from a high school standpoint, a phenomenal. And you got a couple of JUCO guys that should be able to compete. And then you've got some stopgap guys that are coming from the transfer portal. We mentioned Damani Larry is a guy that's a preseason All-American by one publication. That was the National College Baseball Writers Association. Guy's phenomenal. Colton Ledbetter is a guy that everybody in the country would have wanted. And he comes to Mississippi State. And so it's important to kind of understand we need these guys, these transfers, to come in here and kind of get us over the hump while the young guys develop. It's as simple as that. We need these guys to get us back in a regional while Rice Highfield, Bradley Lofton, Gerangelo, Sinjay, those guys, while those guys are developing, and there will be a learning curve for them this year. I think Ross is a guy that probably catches some in the midweek. He is your heir apparent to catcher in my estimation. And, of course, State went catcher heavy in the last class, and you can never have enough catchers. It's the truth. It's a very, very thankless job. Requires a lot of physical skill. But I do think Ross is a future star for us. I think he gets his feet wet this year. But, you need Luke Hancock to do a great job this year. And then you turn the mask over to Ross next year. But I do think Ross is a guy that will catch some in the midweek and possibly on the weekends if we ever end up in a doubleheader situation. But like everybody else, it's going to hinge on pitching. We need Landon Gartman to be great. We don't just need him to be good. We need Nixon to be great. We need Nate Dom to be great. We need these new pieces to come in here and be great. And I think that's going to be the difference. And the West is so unforgiving, right? I mean, you look up, the fourth, fifth best team in the West is capable of winning a regional. They picked Alabama ahead of us. I don't agree with that. I think we are better than Alabama. And so I would probably pick us fifth, to be quite honest with you. I'd pick us fifth. And I think that's enough to get us in a tournament. I think, with a good weekend here or there, you probably end up fourth, maybe even third. Arkansas is picked fourth. I like Dave Van Horn. I like the commitment to baseball up there. I like the fact that they have such amazing fan support. They're a lot like us. They love college baseball up there. And I would submit to you in many respects, they probably love it more than they love basketball, especially when Arkansas is just average. But Musselman's done a great job up there, so they're feeling good about that. But they're going to turn out. The hog pen's going to be full. Dave Van Horn is going to field a competitive baseball team every year he's at Arkansas. You just might as well expect that. Now, when you look at what they lost last year, what they have coming back, they're probably middle of the road in the West. And there are going to be some toss-up weekends that are going to be interesting. And how good's the pitching going to be? Right? I mean, they have the same questions we have. Texas A&M is third in the West. And A&M last year, I don't know if they had the frontline pitching to win an AFL championship. They certainly had enough pitching, I think, to get there and compete for an AFL championship. They didn't. They had a good year. They got hot late. We helped them. But this is a team, too, that was heavy in the portal and kind of flipped their roster. But I could see them finishing anywhere from third to sixth. I think there are a lot of questions about this A&M team. I know they're a sexy team right now. People are saying, hey, they may be like a dark horse for Omaha, and they may be. But I think it's interesting, too, when you look at how the schedule flips for them. I don't think it's very advantageous. And they open up one of their first home series in the SEC. They get LSU the very first weekend. And so then you're kind of chasing the schedule, right? Well, then guess what? Next weekend you go to Tennessee. Do you expect A&M to win either of those series? I don't. I could see it. They could get swept. Honest to goodness. And then guess what? They get Texas in the midweek, and then they host defending national champion Ole Miss. So you're going to get 3 top 5 teams the first 3 SEC weekends, and then you got to go on the road to play Auburn. And we just need Auburn to get one, right? You know what I'm saying? Then Missouri goes there. They go to Kentucky. Then they got to go to Fayetteville. You got to go to Baum, who is also a top 10 team. Then you've got Florida coming into College Station the next weekend. Then you get Alabama, and then you travel to Duty Noble Field, the final series of the year. You look at that schedule and you begin to kind of ask yourself, okay, how is this team projected to be this high in the conference? Predicted third? I just don't see it. Not to say they're not a good team, but that schedule is brutal. Absolutely brutal. And so I think A&M is going to actually take a step back this year. Again, I think they're a sexy team. They could piece it all together. I just think when you face that murderer's row that they're going to face the first month of the season, I think there's going to be a lot of people questioning themselves. Absolutely. And you'd like to be able to play the lower half of the conference, and you thankfully, because the way the schedule works, you get Kentucky, Missouri, but you also get Florida and Tennessee on the other end. It's crazy. And of course, you got play everybody in the West. I think the schedule is going to beat the Aggies up, and so I actually could see State finishing ahead of A&M. Ole Miss picked second in the West, and then LSU picked first. And LSU, I think in many respects, we'd all agree, probably the best portal class on paper. But there are a lot of questions. I'm not a Christian Little fan. I think Cameron Young is a guy that's got a hole in his swing. But you got Tommy Tanks, you got Paul Skeens, and I don't think anybody could argue that LSU did a great job in the portal. They absolutely did. But I think this LSU team is going to be a different ball club away from their ballpark. And that's the thing, too, when you begin to kind of break down the schedule, and we have to go down there. Which makes it awfully difficult. We can hit some home runs, too, but that is Alex Box Stadium is among the toughest places to play in the country, especially when LSU's playing well. The expectations are high, so the crowds are going to be big. It's pretty remarkable to think about. But to kind of get the Rebels here for a second, it's never an easy SEC schedule, and I don't think they have one. I think this is a good schedule. I think it'll really challenge them. But again, I think they have a chance right out of the gate to make some things happen. You open up at Vandy, then you host Florida, who's picked second in the East. Then you go to A&M, then you host Arkansas, which is good. I mean, that's the thing too. You look at these schedules and you think, you want to host these toss-up or worse series. They do. Then they travel to Mississippi State. They host LSU. They host Georgia, which should be a win. They're at Missouri, which should be a win. They get Auburn and Oxford. They go to Tuscaloosa, and that's it. And so if you're Ole Miss, you think if we can just survive, these first, couple weeks of the conference schedule, we got a chance. And again, it's going to boil down to pitching. It is. And, of course, they lose some big players. They do. But, listen, Ole Miss is recruited at a high enough level. They're going to hang around. I mean, that's one thing. I know that, Ole Miss fans were really down on Bianco last year, but the guy has been incredibly consistent. Does a great job in the postseason, managing. I think some of that's coming from the school of Skip Bertman. Bianco's a good coach. And it's like in the offseason a year ago, everybody wanted to fire him after we won an AFL championship. And what does he do? He gets up off the mat, goes and wins one himself. And so even though I don't like those guys, I respect that baseball program. And I respect Mike Bianco. I think most people should. But I'm going to do my predictions next week and kind of see how this thing plays out. But it's kind of like you look at LSU and Tennessee, and they should be runaway winners in their division. And then after that, I think you can pretty much shake it up, especially in the West. And then in the East, I think there's probably 3 teams that could win the East: Tennessee, Florida, or Vanderbilt. But I think Tennessee is probably head and shoulders ahead of that group. But I think the West, because you begin to think about how big these weekends are. You need teams like Auburn and Alabama to pick off a game. You don't need Alabama or Auburn getting swept unless it's being swept by us, right? I mean, you just need them to kind of do their part so people can't get a leg up on you. You got to avoid those 3-game sweeps whenever you can, and you got to hope that your competition isn't in the same process of kind of putting together a 3-game sweep. But that's the way you get ahead in the standings. But again, not a lot of expectations from Mississippi State this year, and I think many of you kind of embrace that. I kind of like it when we're expected to be good. But I think we're better than people expect, and I think we're going to prove that. And it's going to take a little while for us to do it, and it may be when we go to Frisco. That may be when we have to go out there and prove ourselves. Of course, you get 3 Power 5 opponents out there. You got a chance to go play against some named teams. Oklahoma, UCLA. You got some teams out there that can play or Cal. Excuse me. You got some teams there that can play. And so the non-conference schedule for us is challenging, and I don't know that we have overloaded ourselves, though, if that makes sense. I think we've scheduled smart early in the schedule to kind of allow us the opportunity to settle the rotation and settle those roles in the bullpen. We're gonna hit this thing wide open too. It's like, so from February 17th to February 26th, we're playing 8 games. We're going to be busy. We're going to absolutely be busy. VMI last year was a losing team. UM Monroe, it's UM Monroe, right? And then Arizona State didn't have a great year last year, but that's a name program with a lot of pride. But you look at this and you begin to think we need to sweep the first series. We need to really go into Arizona State 5-0. We do. And then maybe you drop one against Arizona State, and it makes you 7-1 against Southern Miss that lost a lot last year, but that's a program that's really kind of come on here in the last couple of years. And they embarrassed us last year at Trustmark. They did. We just simply couldn't get it done. We couldn't move runners. We couldn't hold runners. They dominated the game. And then we head to Frisco. That's the first weekend in March, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Cal. And so I think that gives us a chance to prove it. But, a win over Southern Miss in the midweek is a pretty loud win because of their recent success. But I think my honest opinion is if we take care of business, I think we'll be a ranked team headed to Frisco. And at the end of the day, the only rankings that count are the last ones anyway, right? And that's the ones we want to be in. And we want to have a single-digit number next to our name. But, I think we're a team that's capable of being in a regional hosting conversation. I think we're more than likely a 2 seed on the road somewhere, and I don't think anybody's going to want to see us coming. But I think all of you probably see it the way that I do. We got to find a way to wash this bitter taste out of our mouth. All right, if you hadn't done so, the best way to relive that 2021 NAFL Championship is to read my book, Dogpile. You can go to dogpilethebook.com. That's DAWGPILE, thebook.com. And you get signed and personalized copies right there. Many of you are thinking, Steve, I can't wait for college baseball. Well, read Dogpile. It'll remind you of the magic, how much fun we had. It's an important aspect of things. I think every Bulldog fan in the world needs a copy of that book. Even if you don't read, you need to have it. This is a collector's item. And so go to dogpilethebook.com. Valentine's Day's coming up. Now it's a good time to maybe impress your sweetie. Get him a signed copy of Dogpile. And while you're there, you can get Flim Flam, Alpha Dogs, and Stark Villains. If you're looking for Blooms of Oleander, you can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com. And if you're looking for Stark Villains gear, you find it at StarkVillains.com. We had a lot of people buy T-shirts and hoodies for Christmas. And your Valentine's Day is coming up too. Maybe that's a good gift for you as well. All right, listen, thanks so much for your support of the Boneyard. I'm trying to be a little more regular now that life is kind of calming down for me. I don't know what the next trip is. It'll depend on kind of what happens this week. Will I be headed back out to New Mexico? You begin to ask yourself, do I want to go that far just to go out there and spend a couple days knowing she's going to be home here in 3 weeks from today? Not that I'm counting, but 3 weeks from today, she'll be back. And I will tell you this, too. She's already got her Christmas stuff, and then she's got her Valentine's Day stuff. And I forgot that I bought her some other stuff for Christmas late that came in late, and I said, well, I'll just wait and give it to her for Valentine's. And then I forgot that I had it. So she's got a lot of stuff coming for Valentine's Day. Probably the best Valentine's Day of her life. But I wrote a song about her and had some folks at Songfinch record it for me. And so I sent them a song. They tweaked it a little bit and did a great job. And she was absolutely blown away. I am a writer. So I'm probably a little better skilled at that than other people. And I was a musician for a while. But the reality of it is that it meant a lot to me to hear my words set the music and have somebody that can sing much better than me record it. So it's not too late. You got 8 days. Maybe you can go jump on one of those websites. I went to Songfinch, and it's pretty cool. Some of it's kind of, I've looked at some of the stuff too, like some of the videos, like it's kind of cringe. Some of it, But it's about you. It's about you putting your own spin on things. And then again, I think the best thing to do is, write the things that you want to make sure you get in the song. And so yeah, it was great. And so I encourage you again, no matter if you buy my books or my merchandise or whatever, or follow my lead, do something special for the person that you love for Valentine's Day. Do it. I don't know how much time I have left. Do you? Or how many times do you find, well, I wish I had more of this. I wish I had more time. Let's take advantage of the moments that are in front of us. And she doesn't know this. She's got something else coming for Valentine's Day too. So I'm a hopeless romantic, but I'll tell you this, that the longer that I live, the more I appreciate the people in my life that are close to me. And so again, it kind of hammers it home when somebody you love is in crisis, right? But I encourage you, as always, do something special. Every time somebody makes these little posts on Facebook and they're getting engaged, I always write a dozen things. And one of the things that I talk about is making a big deal out of her birthday, even when she tells you not to, because she doesn't mean it, right? She may not want you to spend the money, but you can still make a big deal out of stuff. You can do something thoughtful or creative for a birthday or for Valentine's Day. It means an awful lot. Thoughtfulness and effort go a long way in relationships. Sometimes you just go buy somebody something and you call it a day. I put a lot of thought and effort into the things that I buy, but I just encourage you, as always, Valentine's Day is 8 days away. Maybe take them to the Bulldog Burger Company for a meal. Maybe take her to her favorite restaurant. Surprise her. Do something special. And ladies, you're not off the hook either. Valentine's Day is not just about you being courted. This is a partnership. There are some things that you can do for us. And sometimes too, it's like, for me, the best gifts are stuff I never see coming. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, well, she'll take me out to dinner and, we'll go to the movies. Maybe I get a massage out of the deal, whatever. But, when I went out to New Mexico, I'm opening up a package and it's ski gear. I'd never been skiing before. And I'm so glad that I went. I wasn't very good at it. I loved it though. And I want to be good at it. So I'm going to go back a little more often. But the reality of it is time and effort and thoughtfulness go a long way in relationships. And so I just encourage you, no matter if you're new in a relationship or in a long-standing relationship, do something special for the person in your life you love the most on Valentine's Day. Absolutely do it. It'll make you and them feel better. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs.
It never dawned on me how much walking I used to do until I bought a house in the suburbs. Like when I'd say, I'm going for coffee, of course I was walking, but now it's like 3 miles and no latte's worth that. I find myself inviting people on walks with me like it's a scheduled activity. This morning, my neighbor asked me what I'm doing, and I actually said, I'm going for a walk with Nancy.
Anyway, when you save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto, that's the easy part of adjusting to the suburbs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
Download Upside and start getting cash back wherever you roll. It's like having your own hype man. Get an average of 17% cash back at restaurants.
Oh, it's dinner time.
Average of 13% on groceries.
Get those groceries.
10 cents per gallon average cash back on gas.
It's go time.
Plus, cash back at participating convenience stores too.
Stacks on stacks.
Users can earn hundreds of dollars a year, 3 times more than other apps.
Upside, show me that money.
All right, we get it. It's easy. Just sign up for the free Upside app and start getting cash back for doing you. Download the free Upside app and use promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Get cash back for doing you with the free app from Upside.